Welcome to this time of worship as we gather in this holy and sacred place. This place of warmth and friendship and community. This place of goodness. It is good to be together. As always, as we gather for this time and in this place, as we gather in person, as we gather online, I do draw your attention to announcements that are in the bulletin and a few that are not in the bulletin. This week's bulletin is dedicated in celebration of families by Carolyn Moore. Thanks be to God. As we celebrate family and we celebrate church family, we celebrate new additions to families, and we offer our congratulations this morning to Randy and Dee and to Nigel and Morgan Burrow on the birth of a new grandson and a new son born yesterday morning, Malcolm Michael Wright Burrow. And so we welcome Malcolm Michael Wright Burrow into the world and into our church family, and I know the Burrows are welcoming him into their family, so our congratulations and love. There are a number of announcements in this morning's bulletin, and as always, I invite you to go through it. You'll note on the back around our Spirit Blend art cards, our greeting cards that are available, and I know Ruth has seen in the narthex. A suggestion was made to the Spirit Blend folk that perhaps they might want to consider selling individual cards as well as the packet cards. And always being the willing folks that they are, they took up that suggestion. And so if you're someone who just wants one card for a special occasion or just to send a note, they now have individual cards and they're also available in the narthex. Also, our Tisket attachment. I know that Patty's been busy as we've gathered receiving your gift cards, and so I thank you from her about those. At the moment, we're over $1,200 in gift cards, and that's wonderful, and the plan is to put the basket together and the list together later today and to do a reveal on Facebook Live, and then, of course, have the basket here. But the next piece is to get out and sell those tickets, and so if you're looking for tickets or willing to help in selling the tickets, you can speak to Patty. Wave your hand, Patty. Following worship this morning. And you can get those tickets, and we'll get the list together for our Tisket a Tasket 2021. And so thank you for all of your support. Just one note around the bulletin as we gather. I am human. I do make mistakes. I don't always admit it, but sometimes when they become public, you have to admit them. Our opening hymn this morning is not hymn number 1, it's hymn number 12 in more voices. So it is Come Touch Our Hearts, but if you turn to hymn 1, you won't find it there, so turn to hymn 12, and that is as we gather. I trust that as we gathered, you've gone through the bulletin, and perhaps you've read a bit about our bulletin cover, and why our bulletin cover is the image that you see before you this morning, taken from a 1960s UNICEF poster. And that's because today is named as World Children's Day, and in the United Church as Children's Sunday. Established by the United Nations, first of all, as Universal Children's Day, and then in 1959 as a day to remember the Declaration on the Rights of the Child, and then later on the Convention on the Rights of the Child. And so our bulletin cover marks that significant day as we continue to seek to advocate and to do our part so that all children, locally and globally, may be afforded the human rights that are entitled to them. Human rights such as the right to education, the right to health care, the right to peace, the right to protection, the right to food, the right to safety, the right to development, the right to be fully who they are meant to be. And yet we know as we gather that millions of children the world over do not have these rights. We think of the 2.2 billion children who are forced to live in dangerous situations. 1 billion children, the UN tells us, live this day in poverty, for they do not have the essentials such as food or clean water or health care. And certainly COVID-19 has created more and more situations where children's rights are violated. One way, as members of the United Church, that we seek to respond to the global issues that face youth and children is through our overseas partners and those churches we work in partnership with. And one way we support that work is through gifts to mission and service. So I'm going to invite Nancy Steele to share our mission moment.
The United Nations Convention on the Rights of the Children is an important agreement between nations. The heart of the UN Convention is the protection of all children, and yet we are aware that too many children's rights go unprotected. Today, we think of those children who are exposed to the unimaginable brutality of military violence. I was on my way to a store when they arrested me, Obeida, a Palestinian child from Al Arub refugee camp, says to the camera. When they took me for interrogation, they bound my hands in plastic cords. They used 2 of them so that I couldn't move my hands at all. My eyes were covered in a thick blindfold that also covered my nose and made it hard to breathe. He is talking about the first time he was detained by Israeli military forces. Obeida was only 14. Palestinians in the West Bank, including East Jerusalem and the Gaza Strip, have lived under Israeli occupation since 1967. Anyone, including children, can be arrested without a warrant if there is suspicion that a security offense has been committed. According to the United Church of Canada's mission partner, Defence for Children, International Palestine, DCIP, Israeli forces detain and prosecute about 700 Palestinian children every year. 13,000 Palestinian children have been detained by Israeli forces and held in military detention facilities since 2000. Israel is the only country in the world that routinely convicts children in military courts, which are known to lack fair trial guarantees. On May 17, 2021, just a month shy of his 18th birthday, Obeida was tragically killed. He was one of the 67 children who were killed by Israeli forces during an 11-day military assault on the Gaza Strip. Palestinian children, like all children, deserve a childhood that is free of violence. Please know that our mission and service gifts support DCIP in defending and promoting the rights of children living in the West Bank, including East Jerusalem and the Gaza Strip. Your support to mission and service help to provide a safe and just future for all children. Thank you.
So let us gather in this place. Let us be embraced by that spirit of hope and peace that is ours to share this day and always. The love of God, the presence of God, the mystery of God, the light of God, for wherever we are, God is here.
Hallelujah,
God, you faithful people, happy or sad, confident or scared, strong or weak, content or frazzled, filled with doubts or sure in faith, God is listening. Come to God. No matter our life's experience, our poise or predicament, preference or pattern, God is listening. So bring your hallelujahs and your complaints, your praise and your laments, for God meets us as we are. In such intimacy, we come before God, and we hold back no prayer or emotion of our heart. Come, people of God, you faithful people. Poet Mary Oliver offers these words to ponder from her poem, Mysteries, Yes. Truly, we live with mysteries too marvelous to be understood. Let me keep my distance always from those who think they have the answers. Let me keep company always with those who say, look, and laugh in astonishment and bow their heads. Embracing the mysteries, the gifts of life. Let us be gathered and grounded in prayer. Please join me in prayer. God in the joy, God in the sorrow, God in the good times, God in the bad. God in a world where children starve, God in a place where people are trapped, God in a time when slavery continues, God in a world where weather kills, God in a place where inequality reigns, God in a time when people are abused, God in a world where wars don't end. God in a place where terror confess. God in a time when hate too often trumps love. God in a world of pandemics and epidemics. God in a place where bullies see no wrong. God in a time of loneliness and weariness. God, again and again, remind us that whatever trial, whatever pain, whatever tragedy, you are with us, right here, right now. Right here, right now. Take a moment and just look around. God here, right here, right now. If that isn't both mystery and marvel, I don't know what is. Namaste. The holy light in me meets the holy light in you. Namaste. Good morning. Everyone's still sleeping. I love to come to church and spend time by myself. Good morning. How's everyone feeling? Good, great. I want to talk a little bit about feelings, because today, after you folks go downstairs, we're going to spend time with a book in the Bible called Job. And it's a book filled with a lot of feelings. So I thought I would begin talking about some feelings, some feeling words. So I'm going to pull out of my bag, my letter bag, an X. Do we have any feelings that begin with X? Excited? No. Let's try another letter. Oh, we have a J. What feelings begin with J? Joy. That's a great feeling. Anyone joyful today? Anyone filled with joy? I am. Let's try another. Let's get one that begins. An O feeling. Overjoyed. What about another O feeling? Overwhelmed. Does anyone know what that means, overwhelmed? When you feel like, I just can't get out of bed. That might be tired, but it could also be overwhelmed. Let's try one more. Let's get what about an H feeling? Happy. Anyone happy today? Good. Do you know, for some of our older ones, that if we were to look in a dictionary, anyone know what a dictionary is anymore? Good. Book full of words, right, and what words mean. That in English, there's over 3,000 words that relate to our feelings. 3,000 words, and we use maybe 5 of them, maybe happy, sad, mad, bad. But there's 3,000 words. And you know, there's words, still with all those words, there are words that don't describe all our feelings. Now you have to be honest with me. Can you be honest with me? Have you ever seeing someone, maybe they're doing this, they're walking, and then they trip like that. And what do? Who's last? Now what's that feeling that's inside? When we see someone, it's not that we're feeling that it's funny, we're kind of feeling maybe a little bit, oops, what should we do? But there's lots of feelings we don't even have words for. But you know what's important? It doesn't matter what we're feeling. If we're happy, or sad, or excited, or silly, or mad, all those feelings are okay. And we can always talk to our mom, or dad, or our grandparents, or our teachers about what we're feeling. We don't have to hide our feelings. And when we come to church, if someone says to you, how are you? And you're not feeling really joyful, it's okay to say, I'm feeling a little sad today. Because we're all one big family. And it's important that we share those feelings and help one another when we're feeling sad or upset, but also when we're feeling happy and we have some good news to share. Like maybe we got a new toy this week, or maybe we went and saw a great movie, or maybe we went to the park and had a great day playing. It's always good to share those feelings because they're all part of who we are. Just before I did this, right? I did Namaste. People saw me do that. That's a way to say, I see in you everything that's good and everything that I love. And you see in me everything that is good and everything that you love. And together, God is there. The other song we sing in church is about this little light of mine. So when you think of that song about this little light of mine, it could be this little joy of mine, I'm going to let it shine. This little laughter of mine, I'm going to let it shine. This little sadness of mine, I'm going to let it shine. I'm going to share it. And when I share it, people help me. So, how's everyone feeling now? Bored? Good? That's good. We're going to sing this little light of mine, and I'm going to think of an X word to figure out an X word for feelings. Thank you, and we'll see you after worship. Thomas Carlyle, the 18th century scholar and author, referred to it as the greatest thing ever written with a pen. There is nothing written in the Bible or out of it equally of merit. And Katie Stanton, the author of the Woman's Bible, called it an epic poem, an allegory to show the grand element of human nature. Both of these authors are referring to the book of Job. The book of Job, that book in the Hebrew scriptures, which is basically the story of Job. Job is but one part in what is termed as Israel's wisdom literature. It was a story that, unlike many other biblical books, was not a story to tell historical context or historical events. It was a story of one man, one life. A story to explore a deeper theological question about the meaning of life, the meaning of suffering, and God's plan in the midst of suffering. Job's story was to mirror the broader historical story of the people of Israel, who in the 6th century BCE found themselves in exile in Babylon. The Israelites had tried to be faithful. They thought they were faithful, but now they found themselves facing suffering, defeated by their enemies. So the questions that are raised by Job in Job's story are meant to be timeless questions, questions that would resonate in that day and years later. And so we enter the story of Job. We're told from the very beginning that Job is an innocent man. Job is the victim of a wager, a bet between God and God's adversary, often referred to as Satan or the devil in our English translations. Unfortunately, we don't have time this morning to read Job in its entirety. However, it is a worthy read. But for today, I want to uplift a few highlights and maybe lowlights, so to speak. So, the scene is set. Job complains, and Job begins searching for understanding. Job's friends' words do not comfort, but they confuse Job. And eventually, God responds, and Job is vindicated. In the end, Job is assured of the mystery and yet the intimacy of his relationship with God. And so for these moments, we're going to turn to some selected chapters and verses from Job and invite you to listen to this ancient story of faith. Many years ago, a man named Job lived in the land of Uz. He was truly a good person who respected God and refused to do evil. When the angels gathered around God, Satan was there with them. And God asked, "Satan, where have you been?" Satan replied, "I've been going all over the earth." Then the Lord asked, "What do you think of my servant Job? No one on earth is like him. He is truly a good person who respects me and refuses to do evil. And he hasn't changed, even though you persuaded me to destroy him for no reason." Satan answered, "There is no pain like your own. People will do anything to stay alive. Try striking Job's own body with pain, and he will curse you in your face." "All right," God replied. Make Job suffer as much as you want, but just don't kill him. Satan left and caused painful sores to break out all over Job's body from head to toe. Then Job sat on that ash heap to show his sorrow. While he was scraping his sores with a broken piece of pottery, Job's wife asked, "Why do you still trust God? Why do you not curse God and die?" Job replied, "Don't talk as a fool. If we accept blessings from God, we must accept trouble as well." In all that happened, Job never once said anything against God. Then Job said, "Today I complain bitterly because God has been cruel and made me suffer. If I knew where to find God, I would go there and argue my case. Then I would discover what God wanted to say. Would God overwhelm me with greatness? No, God would listen, because I am innocent, and God would say, 'I now set you free.' I cannot find God anywhere, in front or back of me, to my left or my right. God is always at work, though I have never seen God. Merely the thought of God, the all-powerful, makes me tremble with fear. God has covered me with darkness, but I refuse to be silent." Then, from out of a storm, God said to Job, "Why do you talk so much and know so little? Now, get ready to face me. Can you answer the questions I ask? How did I lay the foundations of the earth? Were you there? Doubtless you know who decided its length and width, what supports the foundation, who placed the cornerstone, while the morning star sang and the angels rejoiced? Can you order the clouds to send a downpour, or a lightning flash at your command? Did you teach the birds to know that rain or floods are on their way? Can you count the clouds or pour out their water on dry, lumpy soil? Why, when lions are hungry, do you help them hunt? Do you send an animal into their den? And when the starving young ravens cry out to me for food, did you satisfy their hunger?" Then Job said, "No one can oppose you, because God, you have the power to do what you want. You ask why I talk so much and know so little. I have talked about things that are far beyond my understanding. You told me to listen, and answer your questions. I heard about you from others, O God, but now I have seen you with my own eyes. Why? Why me? Why us? Why is there suffering? Why do the innocent get hurt? Why is there evil in our world? Why do children hunger? Why do bad things happen to good people? Why? Who amongst us has not asked that question in one form or the other? And often, as reflected by the answers of Job's friend, have been offered very unsatisfying, theologically pious, abhorrent answers, like do good, get good, do bad, get bad. Answers that are rooted in a theology or philosophy or a worldview that God, the cosmos, the life, operates on this mystery, this magical system of rewards and punishments. Indeed, it's an operating theology we see in our Hebrew scriptures. If you walk in the way of God, you will know the blessings of God. If you fail to walk in the way of God, you will know the curses and wrath of God. And even more so in the Hebrew scriptures, it goes one step further. When bad things happen to people, it must not only because they did something wrong, it could have been that their parents or their grandparents or another generation did something wrong. But really, honestly, is that the God you believe in? Is that the God I believe in? So, enter in Job and Job's story. A story which pushes the questions of the whys, the why of life, the why of suffering. A story which, for me, challenges any simple answers. But yet, if we were to just read those final verses in the book of Job, we might be left thinking that there are simple answers to life's not so simple questions. Or perhaps you, like me, if we are to be honest, heard the concluding verses or have read the concluding verses before and want to shake your fist and yell, you can't be serious. Because after all the suffering that Job goes through, after all the heartache, in the end, Job is left and we are left with very unsatisfying answers. All of Job's persistence and eventually God's omnipotent response leads to this happily ever after conclusion. Job gives in. His fortunes are restored. In fact, Job's fortunes are not only restored, the story is told that God gave Job twice as much as he had before. More cattle, more children, more years of health and wealth. Job goes on to live another 140 years. You can't be serious. Now, I do think it's important to note that the biblical ending in the book of Job was an ending that was probably a later addition to the scripture text. Perhaps coming out of a need to show that all's well that ends well. But truly, that happily ever after ending doesn't fit. It doesn't fit in the book of Job, and it doesn't fit with me. It doesn't fit with the reality of suffering. We know that the pain of suffering cannot be erased with the snap of a divine finger. God instantly making everything better. Everything working out in the end is not, for me, the point of the book of Job. Because then we'd have a God who randomly decides who suffers, and a God who randomly decides who is rewarded. In other words, I do not believe in a God who does math. A God who does math. Meaning, do this, get this. God, I've been kind. God, I've helped my neighbors. God, I go to church. God, I volunteer. Plus, I do. So I shouldn't get this. God does not do math. God does not operate to our dictates or our desires or what we think as what should be life's fair equations. In the end, the book of Job does not offer to us a neat box of answers to life's questions. Indeed, Job reminds us there is no cure to being human. We are human, and we stand each day face to face with the mystery of life, and in that, the reality of suffering. And in that mystery and in that reality, we stand face to face with our understanding of who is God for us. How do we name God? How do we name the divine? How do we name that life force? How do we understand life in all its complexity, all its mystery, all of its gift? Like Job, in the end, we are asked to live in that mystery. Our Buddhist companions might remind us in this way. They say, life is a dangerous situation. Job knew this. We know this. Life is a dangerous situation. That's not a pessimistic or hopeless view of life, but rather it's an invitation to pause and live in the mystery of life. Is it not true that too often we take our moments, our days, those persons who are part of our lives for granted, perhaps forgetting to truly appreciate the day, the moment, the person, the gift of life? Life is fleeting. Life is vulnerable. But life is precious. And life, yes, is dangerous. It's filled with struggles and challenges and hurts and sorrows and war and hunger and joy and laughter and tears and struggle and accomplishments and challenges and celebrations. Life is dangerously precious in its uncertainty and certainty, in its wholeness and its brokenness. Love and loss are intimately connected. And it's that danger, that fragility, that frailty, that impermanence of life that makes it so precious, that makes life a gift, suffering a gift, sorrow a gift, struggle a gift, life a gift. Why? 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 I don't know why. Suffering happens. Bad things happen to good people. Life is dangerous and hard and painful. But life is also mystery and wonder and joy and beauty and gift. To learn to swim, writes Salika Jihad. To learn to swim in the ocean of not knowing, this is my constant work. If you don't know the name Salika Jihad, look up her TED Talk as she ponders about what almost dying taught her about fully living. To learn to swim in the ocean of not knowing. Faith is not about easy answers. Faith is about how we posture ourselves vis-a-vis life. How we posture ourselves vis-a-vis one another. How we posture ourselves vis-a-vis our world. Faith is not a solution, but faith is a companion, reminding us that we do not do this alone. God, whose love is part of all that is, loves us. God journeys with us. God is there in those who listen to our questions, without a need to provide us all the answers. God is there in those willing to come face to face with the suffering of others, the suffering of our world, and be there and act in the midst of it. God is there. I can't answer the why questions, but what I can do is to be in the presence of all that is holy and mystery, to be in that sacred God presence. I can be a holy presence to those who ask the questions. I can be a holy presence in the midst of life's dangers and life's fragilities and life's gifts. I can be there. We can be there. We can be for one another as God is here for us. May it be so. gather, we do give thanks for all the gifts that support and enrich our ministry. Those gifts given this morning and those gifts given through the week and each and every day. Gifts of time and talent, of care. Gifts of our very selves offered freely and generously. Gifts of our resources offered in response to the moving of God's Spirit in our hearts and in our lives. An offering is not a price of admission. An offering is not a guarantee of receiving something. An offering is just that, an offering. Comes from our hearts freely, generously, without expectation of return, but with the knowledge that what we offer makes a difference. Indeed, we are called to love fully, to love wastefully, and to be all that we can be. Thanks be to God. You to join with me in the prayer printed in the bulletin, and it's adapted from a writing called When Life is Messy by Richard Gilbert. Let us join in these prayer words together. It is easy to pray when the sun shines, and we are grateful for another glorious day of being. It's hard to pray when wind and rain and thunder plague our every step and spoil our every plan. It's easy to be virtuous when life goes well, and our existence is a journey from bliss to beauty and back. It is hard to be virtuous when life assaults us, and our very being is a pilgrimage from bad to worse to worse. It is easy to be cheerful when health bursts in us, so that we can feel the very pulse of life. It is hard to be happy when pain and fatigue beset us, and we wonder if we can go on. God, order and neatness, we give thanks for all that is good. We are grateful for manifold blessings bestowed upon us. God, chaos and disorder, be with us also when life is messy. We go from this place. We go into our day. We go into the world. We are blessed. We are called to be a blessing. So remember who you are. Remember what you love. Remember what is sacred. Remember what is true. Remember how you wish to live. Remember that each day is a gift.